Hello, Tom. I have a question from Sunny that was left over from our VIP Patreon supporters question and answer session. Maybe a silly question, but who is computing all this data on my level of experience? As sometimes I experience a watcher, then the watcher watches the watcher, and it goes on that way. So she's asking, where is all of this data being recorded, and who is looking at this and computing it?
Well, there's really not a watcher watching the watcher and so on. That's really not going on that way. The data that's being recorded is the data of what actually, what all the probabilities are and what the choices are. So there's this database of, I call it the probable future database. It's a database that defines the probable future. The future hasn't happened yet, so it has to wait for us to make the choices for the future. But that database contains everything that could possibly happen and the probability that it will happen. And those probabilities are in constant flux, constantly changing. Okay, so now, as the simulation goes on, as the virtual reality moves through time, people make their choices, things happen, they interact with each other. And as that happens, that defines our history thread. That's a thread through a database. Now, it's the same database. It was the probable future until time made it no longer probable future, but possible past. You see? So time goes by, and what was probable future becomes all the possibilities in the past and the probability that they could have happened. And then there's this one little history thread is what actually did happen. So all that information is collected. Now it's collected as it happens. As it happens. Remember, this is a virtual reality that is computed. In this computed reality, everything that you see that's real, everything in this virtual reality is computed. So the system is aware not only of all the things that we did, all the thoughts that we had. This is consciousness now. This is not just looking at the physical world. This is also looking at the world of consciousness, which is your mind, your thoughts, your attitudes, your feelings, as well as the things, it's not just what you said or what you think you thought, but it was everything inside your consciousness. The subjective part of you is then also part of what's being recorded, not just the objective part of you. So all this data is just part of what's being rendered and part of your reaction as consciousness to what's being rendered. You're the player. You see what's going on in the virtual reality and you have thoughts about it. You have feelings about it. It might make you happy. It might make you anxious or sad or cry or whatever it is. All of that is recorded right at the moment as it happens. Okay, so it's not only what's rendered, but your reaction to what's rendered. And that's just simply recorded. And it's there in a database, and anybody can access it. So who can access it? Everybody can access it. But fortunately for all of us, everybody doesn't have the skill or the time to develop the skill or even the interest in developing the skill to access it. And even those that do develop these skills are usually focused on particular kinds of interesting questions, not on what did Susie Q think at this particular moment in time. That's not really what people are interested in. So it pretty much goes unnoticed. Nobody's out there is really that interested in picking apart, the instant by instant what your consciousness was doing or thinking about. And the reason it can do that is you are a piece of consciousness. You are a part of the larger consciousness system. So the larger consciousness system is aware of your thoughts because you're a part of it. So it's aware of all your thoughts and feelings. And all this gets recorded because it can be very helpful when it comes time to make assessments of what you need to work on, what you've done well with to help you get a next incarnation that's valuable to you as it can be. So recording all of this is part of the process of saving the history, saving the information that can be used to your favor, that can help you progress. You can go back and look at it and say, oh, I did that. Oh, that wasn't good. I should work on that, you see. Whereas if you didn't have that data, you wouldn't be able to use it as part of your guide and part of your learning process to go sort through that data. And the system wouldn't be as able to give you incarnations that suited what your needs were. So the data is captured because it serves a very important purpose. So it's there, and it's in the database, and there's no walls built around it. There's no access code necessary, but there doesn't really need to be. If someone were to abuse it, then their library privileges would probably be revoked. So it's there and available. Consciousness system can use it, you can use it, and other people could if they had a good reason to. If there was some way that they were using that to help you out. But if they're using that to take advantage of you, then they'd have their own access would likely be revoked for that misuse of it. But as long as people don't misuse it, it's kind of available. That way there's not the problem of the sign in and having to send you a code to your cell phone, and all the rest of that security doesn't really have to take place because it's not really a big deal. It's better just to leave it open so that it's available and take care of any problems of misuse. You know, the system just takes care of those as they happen, but generally they don't happen.
Now, you speak of data streams in your science MBT theory, but this concept is an ancient one. People in the spiritual circles are aware of something called the Akashic records. They have been aware for thousands of years that these things of humanity, these actions, these thoughts can be recorded. So it's something that you've placed within and experimented much further than with the future probability, the past, the unactualized past. You've detailed your experiments around this concept of databases.
Yeah, it's an old understanding that such data exists. The Akashic records were talked about in, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago by the Hindus primarily. Talked about that. But everybody's used it. You know, the people who tell fortunes, the people who diagnose what's wrong with you, the people who are remote viewing, the people who are seeing without eyes, all these people are just getting this data out of the database. Even if they don't know there is such a database, they just use their mind to open it up to the data, and they get a download based on the query they make, and it's just there. So thousands of people know that the information is there and that it's available, but I'm the first one to come up with a model that explains why is it there? How did it get put there? Why was it put there? And what is its function? So there's a reason for it being there. It's part of this future probability database, which is required by the rendering engine to compute this virtual reality. So that's why it's there. So yes, it's been known and used by thousands of people who have no idea where the information comes from. They just know that this information is available. You get somebody that reads tea leaves or does horoscopes or tosses the chicken bones and see how they land and whatever else. They're all just getting data out of the database, and all the various methodologies like tea leaves or chicken bones or where the planets are and the moons, all of those are just tools that they use to access this database. So it's been around a long time. Knowledge of it has been around, but an explanation of it has just come up with MBT here in the last 20 years. So that's the data. And yes, it is recorded, but abuse of it is very rare and doesn't last, so you don't have to be worried about misuse of the data. It's not like in the physical world where everything's written in a library and anybody can go in and borrow the book and read it. And yes, everything that you've done, thought, said, thought about but didn't do, things you thought about and did do, they're all there, all the good, all the bad, all the ugly, it's there. But it's still private in the sense that it's not really accessible without very specific knowledge of you, very specific knowledge of how to access, and then a very high developed intuition that can access it without a lot of errors.
Yeah.
And if the system sees it being abused, then they may just cut that person's access off, or they may feed them a whole lot of junk just to send them off on the wrong trail. So here, take this, and just make up a lot of silly stuff and hand it to them. So anyway, it's reasonably safe and secure, but it doesn't require a lot of process to get to it. That would make it kind of unusable for the person. The thousands of people that use it without even knowing that it exists, they just have found out by sometimes accident and sometimes being taught that there is such a database, but they don't know anything about it. So you couldn't really put security access to it. That wouldn't make any sense. All those people would be shut out. And that's the great majority of the people who use it would all be shut out. So it has to be open for everyone all the time. But don't worry about privacy. That's not really an issue.
Well, your My Big Toe theory has put all the things paranormal into a scientific context, into a theory of everything, explaining that unknown as well as the known. So that has been a serious help for people to understand and to relax more around it, that this is how this reality works and this is what's available to you.
Yeah, so now whenever there's something that people don't understand, they almost always make up a story to explain it. Because people don't like the unknown. When they find something and they just don't understand it, that leaves a kind of an empty space in their mind. So humans have this tendency to make up a story to explain it, and then that's the answer. So somewhere somebody made up a story that said, well, to get all that information, somebody must be watching. So there are watchers. But then that story has to be there too about the watcher. So there's watchers of the watchers and watchers of the watchers of the watchers. And then you get an infinite regression of watchers and so on. And that explains where all this comes from. But you always have people making up stories and making up tools that enable us to access that.
Which is okay, really, would you think, to have
Yeah,
your own metaphors? But
sure.
what you offer is something that solidifies the scientific
Yeah,
aspect of it.
right. What I have is logic for it
Yeah,
that holds
logic.
together of why the database is there. But yes, there's lots of, no doubt, stories about the database and how it works and how the data gets there and so on. But these are just stories that people make up. It makes them feel better to have an explanation rather than a mystery.
Of course,
And we
different
do that
cultures,
with, we do
different.
that with everything.
Sure.
We come up with tools. Well, like the chakras are tools. They're not fundamental. They're just tools that we use. And, oh, yes, you can see them. Somebody says, oh, no, they're there. I can see them on a person. Well, so can I. But that doesn't mean that they're fundamental. That just means is that information is available and we put it into that format. We get that format when we access it. So it's in the chakra format, but they're not really fundamental things. Otherwise, then that would make the Hindus are the only ones that came up with chakras. The Zen Buddhists don't have chakras. All these other mystical schools that basically understand the truth of the nature of reality, they don't have chakras either. Why is that? Well, it's not that the Hindus were smarter and better than everybody else. It's just that they have different tools. they have tools of their own that they use that are more fitting to their own culture, I guess.
Which is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, which is a good
To
thing.
have your own tools.
So
But it's much
it's
nicer
not
to have
that,
a bigger understanding.
yeah. It's not like the chakras are a bad thing because they're not fundamental. They're a good thing. They help people understand. And yes, you can get the output in that format if you're looking for it in that format. Yes, you can see chakras and you can work with them and you can even manipulate them to help you grow and so on. But that's just another tool that people have made up to help them understand in more concrete terms something that is really very abstract. So consciousness and concepts and like theory of consciousness is all extremely abstract. And we humans don't do well with abstract. We're used to an objective world where things are not abstract, where things are concrete. So we tend to try to make that very abstract knowledge and understanding into something that we can touch and feel and see. And we make it physical. Oh, this chakra belongs to this part of the body. Well, the body doesn't even really exist. It's just a computed body, So it doesn't really contain things. It's just computed. But that makes it more concrete for people. Oh, yeah, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here,
Yes.
it's here. And I got 7 of them, and here's what they all do. And that's a nice story made up to explain things. And it does explain things in a very nice and compact way. And it makes them more concrete by focusing them on body parts and other things. And if we want to see that in that, we want to see that information in that format, we can see that. So it's a good tool, a very good tool. And a lot of people use it. And it's a very useful tool, but it's a tool. And it's the same with all the things that describe the Akashic records, or in my case, just the future probable database and all the information that describes your thoughts, your consciousness, and describes the virtual reality in which your consciousness is an actor.
Thank you very much for your explanation, Tom, and thank you, Sunny, for submitting that question. I'm sorry that it took a little while to get back to you with it, but I hope you like the answer. Thank you. Would you like to see a better world? Get a better perspective. Balance your intellect with intuition and explore your true nature with the Exploring Consciousness and Everything Paranormal program with Thomas Campbell. In this program, you will have the benefit of Tom's vast experience and learn to access point consciousness, communicate with the larger consciousness system, remote view, use your natural ability to heal with intent, and explore reality in the out-of-body state. His famous binaural beats are included. Details are in the description below. Thank you.
I and MBT Events hope you like this video. If you do, then you should consider being a Patreon member, because Patreon members get early access to our special content. You will also be able to get your questions answered by me in special Q&A sessions, and most importantly, your contribution as a patron member will enable us to produce the content that you're looking for. So thank you.